Hello, you are hanging with Langan today. How are you, my cherubs? All right. Andrew Jackson, I think he was a fun guy. He seems like he was a lot of fun. Like he looked happy. He looked like a great guy. I know he's Donald Trump's favorite president, I hear. So here's the deal, you guys. I'm going to have Professor Peter Bales. It's History Tales with Peter Bales, comic and a professor, become a regular of the show, which I love, the official historian of Hanging with Langan. I need you to share. Just share this. The more people get to see this, our numbers have been growing thanks to you. You can start a watch party. You'll see it right there on my timeline. Share it. You'll see it on my group page, Hanging with Langan, and join the group page, Hanging with Langan. So you know what? I want to be able to see your beautiful comments, your lovely little profile picture. So it's as simple as this. You just go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, and you click on that blue button, and I'll be able to see your comments right here. Otherwise, I'll watch for you on my phone, but it's better this way. And you only do it once. You sign up once, and bam, bam, you're there every day. So here we go. I'm very excited. Joining me, Professor Peter Bales, comic historian. Peter.
Hello
there. There you go. Wow, that psychedelic thing is making me really dizzy. I think we got to get rid. It's distracting. It's so weird. It's like whoa.
I'm of course married to a break dancer, so this comes with the territory.
I'm not here. Are you outside?
What?
Are you outside? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'll get closer. There I go.
There you go.
I'm married to a break dancer, so this comes with the territory.
Yes, it does indeed. We're talking Andrew Jackson today. The 7th president of the United States.
Yes.
According to Siri.
We just looked that up.
We just looked that up. Andrew Jackson, Trail of Tears. We'll talk more of what that was because we know the term. Killing the Native Americans. He is Donald Trump's favorite president, supposedly. A big statue in front of the White House at a public park. People want it gone. He was a slave owner. Let's talk about who was Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson was our 7th, and I'm positive about that, president of the United States, and he's a longtime hero in the United States. And people are looking at things differently nowadays.
Well, you said he was a longtime hero based on?
Based upon the fact that he was the hero of New Orleans during the War of 1812, a well-known Indian fighter, and a man of the frontier. At least that's what he passed himself off as.
Right.
And he was known as the common man president.
Oh.
And in fact, you know, history's not black and white and gray. It seems like I say that every time I come on your show.
Wow.
But in the past, we've looked at Andrew Jackson, I think, on a simple level, quite frankly, on the white level. And he did some bad things in regard to Native Americans. And of course, he was a slave owner. He was far from the common man president that he presented himself as. Maureen, he owned a large, gigantic plantation with hundreds of slaves.
But here's the deal. This is what I want to get to. Every president owns slaves back in that time, did they not? Up until
not everyone, most of them did.
Until a certain era, I guess, till the Civil War. I don't know until when.
Well,
do you know until when?
You were from the North or from the South.
Okay.
Good old John Adams from Massachusetts did not own any slaves. John Quincy Adams, his son, did not own any slaves, but the Southern planters did.
Okay, so what are we going to do here? Because somebody like Thomas Jefferson, responsible, one of the founding fathers, are we going to get rid of him too? Like, these are reflective of the times. And I get like the Confederacy, they're lost, and they were put up these statues to intimidate, I believe. But what do we do to founding fathers who did have slaves? Are we going to erase them? How do you erase them?
You cannot erase them. But right. You can place them in the proper context. And Jefferson, that you mentioned, is the perfect example. He's probably the most brilliant president we ever had. John Kennedy, when he was president, had a big dinner at the White House with every important person in Washington at the dinner. And he said, this is the greatest collection of intellects in Washington, D.C. since Thomas Jefferson dined alone. That's what JFK thought of Thomas Jefferson.
Wow.
But yes, he was great, but he was a slave owner. He had an affair with one of his slaves, and that has to be placed in context, and he has to be called out for it.
Well, how do we do that? How do we do that in a way that's appropriate?
Well,
respectful to people of color, and that's also without him, we would not have the liberties that some people are trying to take away from us right now. Without him, so how do you weigh that?
You place it in context. Take a tour of Jefferson's home. Montpelier in Virginia. It's beautiful, and the tour guides, unlike when I was growing up, today talk about the slaves, talk about Sally Hemings, talk about Jefferson, his positives and his negatives. He had a lot of flaws. I don't care that everybody was doing it in his upper class in Virginia. That's not an excuse for a brilliant guy like Jefferson to own slaves.
I get it, but we can't erase it. That was the fact of what he did.
Not erasing it. We have to talk about it and place it in context.
But Professor Bales, not everybody, say you had one of 6 kids and grew up in Lakeless, Hiawatha, New Jersey, parents can afford to take them on a vacation to Jefferson's home in Virginia. So how are they going to learn it? Are they going to learn it in school? Are we going to get rid of the statues? What are we going to do?
You had social studies teachers. They had history books. They gave you lessons, and they should have given you the whole story, not the traditional white story about.
So do we get rid of his statues as well in public spaces?
Well, that's a very, very, very good question, because is Thomas Jefferson a Confederate general? Did he attempt to secede from the Union? No, he's one of our founding fathers.
Right.
George Washington is in the same boat as Thomas Jefferson, as is the father of our Constitution, James Madison. In the back.
The one chewing gum making wise ass comments, Maureen Langan, good student, but is acting like a wise ass.
Do you want to go to the bathroom?
Again, to smoke my cigarettes, my Newports. So forgive my ignorance on this, but what I always feel like I'm saying that with you because there's so much to know.
Whoa.
Thomas Jefferson was a Confederate general?
No, I'm saying he wasn't. So
okay. I'm like, what?
We're removing Confederate generals.
Okay, I thought you said that. I'm thinking, did he switch over very quickly? Was it like a 10-minute period of time? All right.
He was all about the country. He was one of our founding fathers.
I know that. That's why I removed you.
So are we comparing Jefferson to a Confederate general? We're removing the Confederate generals. Do you want to remove Washington and Jefferson and Madison for their slave ownership? It was part of the wealthy upper class in the South. It was wrong. It was disgusting. And I think you need to place it in context. But I would separate Washington and Jefferson and Madison from Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and Confederate generals who not only supported slavery, they quit the country. They seceded from the Union.
And Jefferson, he couldn't quit us. I can't quit you. Isn't that from Renee Zellweger? Right.
That was another movie, actually, but it's good that you're thinking.
I'm always thinking. No, because, when you said that, I'm like, what? I never in my life. So you think, well, maybe 3 minutes he was there.
No.
So let's get back. So what if the Confederacy won then? They'd be like, let's get Jefferson and Madison out of there. Those statues, forget it. They wanted. All right. So Professor Peter Bales, History Tales. Let's get back to Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, according to Siri 5 minutes ago. What about Andrew Jackson? Tell us about the Trail of Tears.
Andrew Jackson was president, and he was the most powerful president we'd had compared to the earlier ones. Of course, he was number 7.
The country. He was more powerful than George Washington?
Yes, he was. He was the most active chief executive we had to that point. He used the veto more times than the 6 prior presidents combined. He stood up to Congress more than the 6 prior presidents combined.
Maybe he was just a pain in the ass. All right, go ahead.
Well, yeah, maybe he was. They called him King Veto. They called him King Andrew. He had a lot of enemies who thought he had too much power compared to the Congress, which is Article 1 of the Constitution. The presidency is Article 2. And our founding fathers, I think, believed that really the Congress should take the lead in running the country. And Jackson is really the first president to contest that. I'll tell you something.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
you said he contested Congress running the country. He wanted to have what, supreme power? Is this why it's Trump's favorite president? What?
Well, yes, that's part of it. That is definitely part of it. Yes, our founding fathers created 3 branches, and it's not clear. It's not supposed to be clear which is the most powerful one. They're supposed to check and balance each other. There's supposed to be a creative tension between the 3. And Jackson is in the mode of Trump. He wants a supreme executive. Jackson wanted that. Trump wants that. That's a great point that you make. Now, you mentioned the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
Jackson had fought Indians. He had lived with Indians. He has this kind of gross paternal feeling towards Native Americans. This is what...
That's an interesting turn of phrase. He had a gross paternal...
Because he thought, guess what he thought?
I don't know.
He's elected in 1828. And you know what? The country's pushing out towards the Mississippi River. And you know who's in the way? The Native Americans. And you know what Jackson thought? I'm going to do them a favor. They're in the way of the rising tide of white settlement. They're going to get hurt. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to forcibly move them to the other side of the Mississippi into reservations, AKA land that nobody wants.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's known as Jackson's Indian removal policy. And it was forced in some cases, and notably the Cherokee tribe. They were forcibly moved by the army in the dead of winter. Many young people died, old people. 15,000 died on this forced march in the middle of the winter. That's the Trail of Tears. But overall, his Indian removal policy is called the Trail of Tears. And at the time, I'm sorry.
God, you're excitable there, Peter.
Right, I'm
afraid of you. Good.
I need get my pills.
Hurry!
Hurry! At the time, Maureen,
yes,
the American public loved it. Maybe there were a few reformers up north who might have said something, but very few. He was a hero. That's what the American people back then thought of the Native Americans. The Trail of Tears today is a stain on American history. Back in the 1820s, 1830s, when he was president, it made him more popular.
Like hating Mexicans today, like something like that. But
absolutely.
Not killing them. Oh, God.
Absolutely.
For the love of God. I'm with Professor Peter Bales. He's a comic, but also a PhD in history, a professor at Queensborough Community College. We're going to have more with Peter Bales in just a moment. Hear ye, hear ye. You guys, thank you for always being so supportive of the show. And if you would like to continue supporting, I bring you shows Monday through Friday for free. But if you want to support in these crazy times, you can go to paypal.me/Mo Langen or Venmo @Mo Langen. All the information's on my website. And again, you don't need to, but it's always appreciated. Also here, I have a store. What do you have, Maureen? I have all these Don't Make Me Hate You items. They just crack me up. T-shirts, onesies, clocks, masks. The masks and the coasters and the T-shirts are really selling well. And I feel like that's just so funny. They're really selling well. And here, see the mask? They're really comfortable. I have one. And wear masks, people, please, because then we can have nice things. We can't have nice things unless you wear a mask. So there you have it. And if you want to sponsor the show, that's very, very possible, very doable. Very affordable, by the way. You just sponsor it here, your name right here, your logo, and life is good. Okay, you guys. My guest here on Hangin' with Langen is the gifted, the talented Mr. Peter Bales, professor and comedian. He's a historian. And here's what I want you to do. If you're watching the show, please share this. Share it on the .com. Let people know about it. Join the Maureen Langen Facebook page, the group. It's called Hangin' with Langen. And go ahead, share it. This is interesting stuff. I'm with Peter Bales. We are talking about President Andrew Jackson replacing, right now they want to replace him with Harriet Tubman. What is it, the $20 bill? What bill?
On the $20 bill. Of course it makes sense today.
Of
It
course it
didn't
does.
make sense in previous generations. He was a hero and unquestioned. But this is a different time. And he was a slave owner, even though he called himself the common man. He had a great plantation with hundreds of slaves. He had a race course in front of his mansion, the Sport of Kings. And so his record with Native Americans and African Americans is horrible. And this is 2020, and times are changing. You don't erase him, but you put him in context. I heard they're moving him down off the center of the $20 bill rather than removing him entirely. We'll have to see when that happens.
I would love Harriet Tubman, a Black woman who was the bravest, one of the bravest people I have ever read about in my entire life. And I want like books and books discussed about her in schools instead of just a footnote alongside all of these white men who kept women like her down. That's what I want. Thank you.
Well, we're long past the time when Harriet Tubman should be a footnote. I mean, she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and people don't know this, but she was the first one on the Underground Railroad as a conductor to accept a monthly ticket. I apologize for that. That was bad.
She didn't have Easy Pass. That's what you're saying. She didn't have Easy Pass.
Sorry.
Yeah, but didn't she lead?
It wasn't a traditional railroad. It was a series of hiding in a cart under straw at night, going from safe house to safe house if you were an escaped slave. And she was conducting this Underground Railroad all the way to the north and sometimes all the way to Canada.
Didn't she? No, I knew it wasn't a choo-choo train, Peter. I'm wondering, I'm not an idiot. No, I know you're talking in general. What about, didn't she lead a military group of men?
I don't know. Where's Siri?
She did. She was she led, and I don't know if it was an army. It was a contingent. It was who knows this? Get in with me here. I know she did. She did something like that.
Let's get your listeners in on this.
I am. I'm asking you. Harriet Tubman led men in battle, and I want to know what group of men that was. I know. I mean, okay, get back to me with that. Garrick, I want you to do the research. Garrick's been listening to me since my KGO days. I've just delegated to you, Garrick. All right, so get back with me on that, you guys. So, all right, back to Andrew Jackson. He did good things, you say, but he did bad things. And who is this man? Where did he grow up? What was his life like?
He grew up in North Carolina. He was born in North Carolina, was 12 during the Revolution, had a scar across his cheek because some British officers had commandeered his little. He was actually born in a log cabin. A lot of presidents.
They all were. That was the thing. That was the end thing.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a backdrop back then. It was actually a real log cabin. And one of the British officers said, "Boy, shine my boots." And young Andrew Jackson said no. And he got a sword across his face and a scar for the rest of his life.
Oh, I don't like that at all.
Moved out to his adopted state of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And back then they didn't have law schools or bar exams, but he studied under a judge and became basically a self-taught lawyer. And he met a married woman.
SpaghettiOs.
Yes. And in that day and age, I'm telling you, they were friends. And I mean friends with a capital F. And she was in an
friends with a capital F.
She was married to an abusive man. And they were friends. But then her husband went to Nashville, the capital of Tennessee, and a letter came from Nashville to their small town where they lived that he had gotten a divorce. And once she was divorced, Andrew and Rachel could take their relationship to the next level, which in those days was not nookie, it was marriage.
Yes.
And they went down the Mississippi to New Orleans, got married. Very happy, came back up to Tennessee, very happy. He's very successful. And then another letter comes from Nashville. Oops, that first letter about the divorce was a mistake. Rachel's now married to two people.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Andrew sent a friend with a gun, and the husband was encouraged to get a divorce that day immediately.
Excuse me here. As a soldier and spy for the Union Army during the Civil War, Tubman became the first woman to lead an armed military operation in the U.S. in what is known as the Kabahi Ferry Raid. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Wow. Okay. She was a volunteer with the Union Army. There's some more to this, and I'm going to find out more about Harriet Tubman.
That listener. That was great.
That was me. Maureen Lankin just did that research.
Thank you.
The listener. They failed me.
Thank you, Maureen. You did that? You are multitasking. Seriously.
I am a multitask. I'm doing the tech. I'm doing this. All right. So then
she was actually married to two men at the same time.
Well, you know what? Today she would have gotten a sitcom. I mean, a reality show. So what happened then? Did they get divorced, you said, or what happened?
No, the divorce was done at gunpoint. And so finally, she was an honest woman. That happened in the 1790s. Now,
this is like a shotgun unwedding.
Well, that's exactly. I think it was a musket undone wedding, but you're right. That's exactly what it was. Now,
but who undid it? Who put the gun? Who said you're not married?
Jackson himself.
Oh, he did.
That was the 1790s. 1828, Andrew Jackson is running against John Quincy Adams for the presidency. And it was one of the nastiest campaigns ever on the planet.
Really?
Yes, because Jackson and Adams didn't personally attack each other. In those days, presidents did not go out and shake hands and give speeches and kiss babies. It was considered ungentlemanly. That doesn't happen until the 1790s. First person to do that is William Jennings Bryan. But anyway,
I didn't even know him.
The Jackson supporters accused President Adams of being a degenerate gambler. Do you know why? Because he purchased for the White House a chess set and a billiards table. That became, in the Jackson newspapers, a degenerate gambler. They also accused President Adams of getting a woman when he was ambassador to Russia, getting a woman for the czar, so the czar would like him. They accused our president, John Quincy Adams, of being a pimp. They had nasty campaigns way back then. And listen to this, Maureen.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's 1828, the election.
It's 1828. Well, let me set the stage. It's 1828 in American history. Go.
It was also a dark and stormy night.
It's a dark and stormy night.
And Adams supporters are giving it just as good as they were getting it. And they accused Rachel Adams of being a bigamist. And it's in all the newspapers. And it's 1828. And this mistake that I told you about happened in the 1790s. But when you run for president, they're going to find everything you did in the cloakroom. Imagine having cloakrooms today? No. But anyway, in the cloakroom in fourth grade. And they found out this story, and all the headlines in the papers say Rachel Jackson, bigamist. Rachel Jackson, bigamist. She's a very religious woman, a very sensitive woman. Jackson says she's on the plantation. No newspapers allowed on the plantation. Nobody at the meals talk about this. I don't want her to know that the whole country's talking about her as a bigamist. Rachel Jackson, yes.
Excuse me, Professor Bales. So when Jackson married Rachel, and she was still married to some chap. So when it came to light that she was still legally married, did she stay married to Jackson and we got rid of the first guy?
She got rid of the first guy.
Now, divorce was like,
they took care of the scandal, and it was an accident, and it was way in the 1790s.
I know, but I have a question about it. I have to go back to clear my mind so I can move forward to 1800s.
Okay.
So when she got divorced, that is such a rare thing to do back then. And you say she was a religious woman. So that's even like a double dog dare you. So how did this happen?
Well, Protestants were a little bit cooler about divorce than Catholics, not much.
Okay.
But the fact that they bring it up in 1828 to smear Jackson.
Let it go.
And I'll tell you, Maureen, she took a walk on the plantation one day. She went into the blacksmith. Somebody had left a newspaper out. She saw it. She read the headline and was extremely upset that this was going. They tried to hide it from her, but she found out the whole country was talking about her as a bigamist. Now, long story short, Jackson won the election of 1828 in a landslide. And in between the November, and back then they swore in March, Rachel Jackson was so upset by that, as you know, mental health follows physical health and vice versa. She got very physically sick, and before Jackson was sworn in, she died.
The media killed her. The fake media, the fake news.
What Jackson believed.
Well, you know what? Who knows what?
Actually, gossip had killed her.
Well, it must have been seriously, that must have been a huge, like, at that time, stain upon your reputation and a bigamist, but it was mistaken. She did think the divorce papers had gone through.
Right, it was a mistake. It was
screwed up. Was it a clerk in New Orleans? We don't know.
Probably. We don't. I'm not even sure who screwed up, but it was a screw up.
Hey, Garrick just got back to us. Garrick, I also looked it up while you were looking it up, and yes, we did say Harriet Tubman led the battle on the Combahee ferry raid to free slaves. I'm sure I'm not saying it correctly, but it's Combahee. So that's what it looks like. He just got back to me. I wanted to acknowledge him. What else do we need to know about Mr. Jackson here?
Jackson, though, history's not black and white. It's gray. I'm sorry. I always say that.
Yeah, you do.
But he was, in some ways, I hate to tell you this, progressive when it comes to white people. Maureen.
Yeah.
Washington, Adams, Jefferson believed that the rich and well-born in America should run the government in the interest of the rich and well-born. Yeah. That's what our American leaders believed in 1800. At least by 1828, Jackson said that the common man should run the government in the interest of the common man. That is a huge step forward. He's not taking a step forward to include women in that, or Native Americans, or African Americans, but it was a huge step forward just for the poor and middle class white guys.
I think this is important to talk about all this because we have to put it in context of the times. I think that is so essential. And he's not all bad. And you talk about this, and for those days to be progressive with white men, it's still kind of the same. But we throw in some women and some people of color just for a little flavor. But, you know, I think it is important to do that because when we just paint people with one stroke, it's very limiting. And human beings are multidimensional. Like in New York, they're taking down Teddy Roosevelt from in front of the Museum of Natural History, or is it the MoMA? I forget. The Museum
of Natural History. He helped to found that. Roosevelt, with all of his flaws, and yes, he was a racist, although not especially actively so, but he used to speak before reporters and use ethnic slurs. Unthinkable today. You have to put it in the context of his time. He was very racist against Latin Americans, for example. Ask the country of Colombia that we stole Panama from. But that's another story. That statue has Native Americans in subservient kneeling positions, and it should come down. You're not erasing Teddy Roosevelt. You are honoring him in a more appropriate way, which is in museums, in context. They're not going to destroy the statue. It's not going to. We're not going to forget about Teddy Roosevelt or Andrew Jackson in history class. Maureen, stop passing notes.
I have a question. So the statue of Roosevelt in New York, he's upon a horse. And who is it? Who else is in that statue?
I believe there are subservient African-American and certainly Native Americans there. He's our nation's greatest environmental president. He was active in the founding of the museum.
But we don't believe in the environment anymore. So that was a waste of time.
Well, you know, put him in context. He was a hunter. Our nation's greatest environmental president was a hunter. I guess he wanted to preserve nature so he could go kill animals in it.
Well, they do thin herds. I mean, they still do with deer hunting, and who the heck knows? And he was hungry. But let me ask you this. What do you think about them replacing the statue in New York in front of the Museum of Natural History, which he helped found, you say, with a statue of him just being nice? Could we have like him being nice?
Yeah.
Like a statue where there's nobody being denigrated?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we can do
Yes.
that. All right, just
Look,
wondering.
you just took a C- and made it a B+. That is
What do you mean? What are you talking about? Why not an A? What did I have to do to get an A? You're a woman hater. You hate women. You think the guys in the class are smarter. Whatever. Go ahead. I know what you're doing. It's sexist.
We need to get this out in the open. You're exactly right. You are. That is an inappropriate statue. He does not need to be banished from sight. But
Right.
when you have a Native American kneeling like that, that needs to be taken down. And I'm surprised it took this long.
Agreed.
You agree?
Of course I agree. I mean, times have changed, but I'm glad to hear you say that an appropriate statue for a man who founded that museum. I just think we have to balance this all out. I mean, we're getting a little,
Do you know what cartoon character Teddy Roosevelt inspired?
That guy?
No.
Who's that guy?
Yosemite Sam.
Yeah, Yosemite Sam. Did he start? No.
I'll give you a hint. This is a great question.
Yosemite Sam is a good answer, by the way.
Young people wouldn't get this, but you will.
All right, you just call me old, and then you just okay. Get ahead.
You're a spring chicken compared to me.
Okay.
Now, he was very nearsighted, very, very nearsighted. A lot more nearsighted than me. I'm not lost. Want to take my glasses off.
All right.
He had a phobia about it. He carried 3 pairs of glasses on himself at all times. Growing up, you and I watched a cartoon.
Don't answer it because people are answering it. Let me see what they say.
Ah!
Oh, come on. I want to see this. Who do you think it is, you guys? I thought it was Yosemite Sam because he was an environmentalist, and I just can picture him out there with 2 guns. No. Michael Cardinale is saying Elmer Fudd.
No.
Okay, don't tell it. Don't tell it. Let's see. Okay, I want to see what people say. Okay, that's a whole different topic. Who do you think Teddy Roosevelt? Now, there's a little bit of delay. That's why people aren't answering immediately. There's a cartoon character that
I gave a major hint.
He gave a major hint. Mr. Magoo.
Correct.
Nobody said that. Maureen Langan thought.
You thought of it?
I did.
All right.
I've had it with you. With Maureen thought of it. What? Just because I'm funny doesn't mean I'm not. I'm a very smart person.
You get an A+. A+.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
A+. A+.
Right.
You don't have to.
They weren't the Trinity. Okay. Yeah, Elmer Fudd. You said bifocals. You said, but why were they? That doesn't.
No, Mr. Magoo.
Mr. Magoo. Yeah, but why? I'm not seeing, other than the bad eyesight, anything in common with.
Well, the bad eyesight. When he was done being president, he went on safari in Africa, and a lion was charging at him, and he's aiming the rifle, and when he pulled the trigger, about 7 other triggers fired at the same time, because the African guides knew this was some American rich guy who's paying them, and he can't see, and if the lion kills him, we're not going to get paid.
This is like Donald Trump Jr. and Eric.
Well,
this is like the same thing. Only different.
That is a great parallel.
Thank you. Thank you. Again. All right.
So when he's done being president, he went on safari to Africa and came out with, it wasn't a photographic safari like today. It was a real kill 'em dead safari. He was a big game hunter.
All right, let me tell you something. If I'm in a safari, I got these animals charging at me. All of it's a big game, like kill them. I have no desire. We had an industrial revolution for a reason. My mother came to America, so I wouldn't have to go on a safari. I have no interest. I still don't get Mr. Magoo as representative of Teddy Roosevelt, other than the bad eyesight.
It's based entirely on his eyesight. He also inspired, he was very popular, the teddy bear.
So that I knew, yeah.
Yes, the teddy bear.
Do you think there'll be a Donald Bear? All right.
I think there'll be a Donald voodoo doll.
Oh gosh, I have a pinata that I'm just waiting to use. I'm not even joking. All right, so Mr. Peter Bales, professor and comedian, he has a PhD, so he thinks he's better than me. But whatever. You kind of do.
No, you're smarter. I always say you're much smarter than I am. You have a PhD on the streets. And
I also have a degree in communications and English. Okay, I also have a degree. Okay, and 2 years of graduate school. I don't have my master's, but I have 2 years. I can afford to matriculate. What?
I'm saying your dad had a PhD on the truck.
Huey Langen, sanitation worker. Peter Bales, is there anything else you want to tell us about Mr. Jackson before we go? Because I want to let people know about my store. It's Don't Make Me Hate You merchandise. Just go to molangan.com. Everything's up there. Or go to don'tmakemehateyou.com, Maureen Langan. It all takes you to the same place. And if you want to sponsor the show, get in touch with me. You can have your name right there at the bottom of the screen or whatever. We'll work it out. Get in on the ground floor because I'm starting to expand this in about a month to a lot of different platforms. And we'll work together because I'm all about love. The other thing is, if you're interested, of course, you can do the PayPal or the Venmo. I'm bringing you a show every day, Monday through Friday. That's what we're doing. John Muir was a big part of Teddy Roosevelt's conservation.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I knew about that. That's very West Coast. But yeah, we'll talk about him another day. So listen, Peter Bales, how can
Maureen,
people...
you are the best. You are the best. I want to thank you for having me on. You know why? This is a great time for history, and people like you are taking the lead in taking another look at things that need another look with changing times. So I thank you for that.
Okay, what you have to say, because I need promos as I expand this show. And I'd like you to say, we're going to pick it up from here. Everybody, you're watching the sausage being made, say, and that's why you should be hanging with Langan.
And that is why you should be hanging with Langan.
Woohoo! All right, you guys, I will see you tomorrow. I have Fran Capo on, and she is a Capo or Capo? How do I say her name correctly? Fran Capo, Capo?
Fran Capo. She's the world's fastest talker.
She's in the Guinness Book of World Records.
She's a comedian friend of both of ours.
Yeah, and she does so much. She's a minister. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records like 9 times different things. We're going to find out what that's about. She's a really fascinating woman. So, and next week I have, guess what? My brother is going to join me one day. You may get bumped or you may not, because he is a Marine, once a Marine, always Marine, who was in Desert Storm. And he's a history teacher, a high school history teacher. And he wants to talk about PTS. He thinks it's very important, and he's really funny. He goes, Maureen, I'm going to make this funny. I go, oh, you want to make PTS funny? He means he has funny stories from being in Desert Storm, but he also wants to talk about the deeper things that go on, because he talked about himself being affected by this and not sharing it with anybody until maybe this week. So,
you know what they used to call PTS? Ask him about this. Shell shock. They changed the name of it.
And they also took the D out of it. PTSD. They took the D from this. He told me that. It's kind of like, and people are going to think I'm making fun. I'm not. The ARC, the Association of Retarded Citizens. That's what ARC stands for. You see, that's really what it stands for. So my niece said to me, Maureen, Aunt Mo, I went on an interview at ARC. Do you know what that is? And I go, yeah. And I said the name. She goes, no, do you know what they do? And she's, Aunt Maureen, we don't call it that anymore. I go, well, then tell them to take the R out of their name. I'm just telling you what their name was. I didn't make this up.
The NAACP is not going to change their name out of respect for their history.
Oh, of course. And I used to work with Down syndrome kids when I was in high school once a week. And I have a real soft spot for those people and for those people and special needs people. I do a lot of work with those type, to help people. I help people, Peter. All right. So hopefully we'll see you next week. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys. And hey, yes, we want tomorrow, you guys, hang with Langan. Join my group page. It's Hanging with Langan on the Facebook, on the .com, and follow me on Facebook, Maureen Langan, all the stalking sites. I don't do Twitter. People are stressing me out on that. People make national, international proclamations. I don't know where you find it. I don't know what's happening in the country because I don't know who's putting what out there. I can't. And then everybody hates each other. It's too much on me. All right, Peter Bales.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
And thank you, guys.